So here we are again. Another day in Port Charles, another life shattering into a million little jagged pieces right before our eyes. And honestly, I don't even know where to start with this one because it is just so messy. It is so painful. It is the kind of drama that makes you want to scream at the television screen because you saw it coming a mile away, but you really hoped that maybe this time things would be different. But they aren't. They never are. Because today at General Hospital, the walls didn't just close in on Portia Robinson. They collapsed. Completely. And it wasn't some external threat or a mob shootout or a weather machine that did it. It was the truth. The ugly, undeniable truth that she has been hiding for months, or maybe longer. Who even knows anymore? With her, it started like any other shift, or at least it seemed that way. But then chaos. Absolute chaos. A medical emergency of the highest order. We are talking about Portia Robinson, a doctor, a chief of staff, someone who is usually the one barking out orders and saving lives, suddenly becoming the patient. And not just any patient. A terrified pregnant woman in agonizing pain. She was rushed into the ER with severe abdominal pains. You could see the fear in her eyes. It was raw. It was real. And it was terrifying. She was clutching her stomach, terrified that she was losing the baby. The baby that was supposed to be her second chance. The baby that was supposed to heal the fractures in her marriage to Curtis. The miracle baby. But miracles in Port Charles usually come with a price tag, don't they? And this one came with a receipt that Portia has been trying to hide in the back of a drawer for way too long. So she is there, in the ER. The doctors are working on her. They are pumping her full of pain meds to manage the agony to try and stabilize her and the baby. And she is drifting. You know, that state, that twilight state where you are half awake and half asleep and your filter is just gone. That is where she was. Floating in that dangerous space between consciousness and oblivion. And the fear was just pouring off of her. Not just fear for the baby's life, but fear of something else. Something darker. Curtis was there. Of course he was. Because despite everything, despite the lies of the past, despite the 20 years of hiding Trina's paternity, Curtis Ashford shows up. He is a good man. He loves hard. And he was right there by her bedside, holding her hand, looking at her with that intense, worried look he gets. He was probably praying. Probably begging whatever higher power exists that his wife and his unborn child would make it through this. He was being the supportive husband. The Rock. And that is what makes what happened next so incredibly cruel. It is tragic, really. Because just as he is leaning in, just as he is offering her his strength, Portia starts to talk. And she isn't making sense at first. Just mumbling. Crying. The tears are streaming down her face, mixing with the sweat on her brow. She is gripping his hand so tight her knuckles are white. She is panicked. She is delirious. But then the words start to form. And they aren't words of comfort. They are a confession. A deathbed confession almost, except she isn't dying. She is just unburdening her soul at the absolute worst possible moment. She looks at Curtis through the haze of the drugs and the pain and she breaks him. She just breaks him. It's not yours, she says. Or something like that? I'm paraphrasing here, but the message was clear. Crystal clear. She starts sobbing harder now, like the dam has finally burst. She tells him right there in the emergency room with the monitors beeping and the nurses hovering that the baby isn't his. And she doesn't stop there. No, because Portia doesn't do things by halves when it comes to destroying Curtis's trust. She admits to the cover-up. She admits that she swapped the DNA results. She literally went into the system or the lab or however she did it. And she falsified the medical records to make it look like Curtis was the father. Why? Why would she do that again? After everything they went through with Trina, after almost losing him the first time, she said it, through the tears, she choked it out. She was afraid he would leave her. She was terrified that if he knew the truth, if he knew the baby wasn't his, he would walk out the door and never look back. So she lied. She manipulated the science. She played God with the truth to keep him, and in doing so she guaranteed that she would lose him. It is the classic self-fulfilling prophecy. It is tragic Greek drama played out in hospital scrubs. And Curtis Mann. I felt for him. I really did. He just stood there, frozen, like a statue. You could see the color drain from his face. It was like watching a man get shot in slow motion, but there was no blood, just the draining away of hope. He didn't scream. He didn't rage. He just died a little inside. You could see it in his eyes. The realization hitting him like a freight train. Not again. That is what he had to be thinking. Not again. How could she do this to me again? He trusted her. He took her back. He committed to this family, to this new baby. And it was all a lie. Another lie built on the foundation of the previous lie. It is pathological at this point, isn't it? But wait, it gets messier. Because this is Port Charles and nothing happens in a vacuum. Isaiah was there. Isaiah Gannon. You know, the guy who has been hovering around the surgeon, the friend, the mystery man in some ways. He was there, likely involved in the medical situation, or just nearby, because, well, hospitals are small places in this town. And he hears this, or he finds out in the chaos. The news drops. And the shockwave hits him too. Because if the baby isn't Curtis's, well, do the math. It turns out Isaiah is the father. The real father. And the look on his face, priceless. And heartbreaking. And terrified. He is shocked. Completely blindsided. He had no idea. Or maybe he suspected. No, he looked genuinely floored. He is standing there watching this woman he has a history with, watching her husband fall apart, and realizing that he is the architect of this chaos unknowingly. He is about to be a father. And not in a happy, let's paint the nursery kind of way. But in a, I just destroyed a marriage, and my life is about to get very complicated kind of way. Isaiah doesn't know what to do. He is looking at Portia, looking at Curtis, looking at the floor. He is paralyzed. So now we have this triangle of misery. Portia, the liar who acted out of fear and desperation. Curtis, the betrayed husband who has been played for a fool twice by the same woman on the exact same issue. And Isaiah, the accidental dad who was suddenly thrust into the center of a domestic hurricane. And you have to wonder, what was Portia thinking? Did she really think she could keep this secret forever? Did she think the truth wouldn't come out? DNA has a way of revealing itself in this town. Eventually, someone needs a transplant, or a blood transfusion, or a paternity test for a custody battle. It always comes out. Always. But she was so desperate to hold on to Curtis that she didn't care. She gambled everything on a lie. And today, the house won. The house always wins. The scene in the ER was suffocating. The air was thick with tension. You could practically taste the regret. Portia is still in pain, still in a medical crisis, but now the emotional crisis is threatening to eclipse the physical one. Curtis pulled his hand away. I think he had to. How can you hold the hand of the person who just stabbed you in the heart? He stood by the bed staring at her. But he wasn't really seeing her anymore. He was seeing a stranger. He was seeing the woman who looked him in the eye and lied about Trina for 20 years and then turned around and did it again with this baby. The betrayal is so deep, I don't know if there is a bottom to it. And poor Isaiah. He is just there, dealing with the shock. He is a doctor. He is used to dealing with trauma, with sudden changes in condition. But this is a different kind of trauma. This is personal. This is life-altering. He is going to be a dad to a baby that was being passed off as another man's child. How do you even process that? How do you look at your friend or colleague or whatever Curtis is to him and say, sorry, there are no words for this? The writers really twisted the knife with this one. It is almost cruel to Curtis. The man just wants a family. He just wants honesty. And he keeps picking Portia. Why love is blind, they say. But in Curtis's case, love is blind deaf and apparently has short-term memory loss because he keeps walking into the same trap. But this has to be it, right? This has to be the end of them. There is no coming back from this. You can forgive a 20-year-old secret, maybe, because it happened in the past. But to do it again, while you are currently married, to fake a DNA test, that is premeditated. That is active deception. That is malice, even if it was born out of fear. So now we wait. We wait to see if Portia and the baby survive the medical crisis. Because that is still happening, by the way. Amidst all this soap opera drama, there is a real medical emergency happening. But honestly, even if she pulls through physically, her life is over. Her marriage is over. Her reputation shredded. Who is going to trust a doctor who falsifies medical records? That is a career ender right there. She blew up her entire life in a moment of panic and insecurity. And Curtis, I worry about him. He's going to be in a dark place. He was so excited. He was so ready. And now it's all ash. Just ash in his mouth. And Isaiah, he has to step up now. He has to be the father. But does he want to be? Is he ready? He looked like a deer in headlights. A deer that just found out it owes 18 years of child support and emotional labor. It is a mess. A beautiful, tragic, quintessential General Hospital mess. And I can't look away. I am tired, I am frustrated, but I am glued to the screen because I have to know what happens next. Does Curtis walk out right then and there? Does Isaiah step in? Does Portia beg for forgiveness that she definitely doesn't deserve? This week is going to be heavy. Heavy on the tears, heavy on the shouting, heavy on the silence. The silence of a marriage dying on a hospital bed. It is brutal. But that is why we watch, isn't it? To see people make the worst mistakes of their lives and then try to crawl out of the wreckage. Portia Robinson just crashed her car into a wall at 100 miles an hour, metaphorically speaking. And now we are all just standing around the crash site waiting to see who walks away. It makes you think about trust. About how fragile it is. You build it up brick by brick, year by year, and it takes one sentence, one lie, one moment of weakness to knock the whole thing down. Portia didn't just break a promise. She broke a man. She broke a family. And for what? For a false sense of security. For a fantasy that wasn't hers to keep. So yeah, that's the news. Portia confessed. The baby isn't Curtis's. She faked the DNA results. Isaiah is the father. And everything is ruined. Typical Tuesday in Port Charles, I guess. But man, this one hurts. It really hurts.